Making flat patterns for cosplay can be a huge pain. Now, if you don't have a model that you can physically hang on to and create flat patterns like you see Evil Ted or Punish Props do, you can do it digitally. Stay tuned and I'm going to show you how. Hello, welcome to another episode of Build Stuff with Ben. BS with Ben for short. One thing that I see a lot of people doing is that you need a 3D model of whatever you're about to create a foam flat pattern for. Now, what I do for a living is a lot of three-dimensional computer-aided design. I'm not going to show you how to design things, but what I am going to show you is how to take something from, say, Thingiverse and make a flat pattern based off of that. This is going to be in two parts. First part is how to actually create the flat pattern, take that 3D model and make a flat pattern. And we're going to do that in Mesh Mixer. And then the second part is how to take Inkscape and clean up the flat patterns so that it is something a little more usable for you in the future. Don't forget to hit subscribe. You will find that down below. Also, leave any comments that you have about this. If you have a better method, then let me know. I'd like to see it. The biggest thing about this is to be completely honest, is I do a lot of work in SolidWorks and it does everything I need it to, but it's a very expensive software package. With Mesh Mixer and with Inkscape, you can do this for free. All of this software is open source and free. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to meshmixer.com, and if you don't already have it installed, download it and get that onto your system. It works for both Windows and Mac, so nobody's going to be left behind. The next thing we're going to do, and this is for the next video, but you still need to download and get it ready, is Inkscape. Download that, and again, this is good for both Mac and Windows. The last thing we're going to get you to do online is to go to thingiverse.com, and we're going to search out something for an STL file or a 3D file of what we want to create the foam pattern, or the shape that we want our foam to be in the end. Now, I've always liked Boba Fett, so let's click on that. And we're going to download all of these files. This one's pretty handy. You can notice that it hasn't been segmented out for 3D printing, and that will be to our advantage. So let's just assume that I've done all of the unzipping and got the files where we need to, and I've played around a little bit. So obviously when I'm going to do the import, you're going to see a bunch of files that aren't normally in that thing. But what we're going to do is we're going to go to the desktop where I put everything. We're going to look up Mandalorian, and we're going to look at the one file that actually came in here is called Final Fixed Final. I love it. These people still have the same issue I have. I have files that say final, 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 final. Oh my God, please be the final, and so on and so forth. Anyways, what we have here is a STL file of what we're going to chop up and make into our helmet. Now, there's a few things that we're not going to do. We're not going to do the side pieces. We're not going to do a lot of this little extra stuff. Those not familiar with Mesh Mixer, follow along the best you can, get in there and get dirty, but I'm going to be going through this fairly quickly. The first thing is we have the helmet selected. We're going to go into edit and we're going to do separate shells. Now, if there are several different shells, which there happen to be here, it's going to blast them apart. Now, we don't want some of these. So that's the piece that we're probably going to work with the most. And I'm going to look at all of this and we're going to delete all that out. So now we have a file that is a little more simplified and we can start working with. We're going to keep this object browser right here. If you do not see that, what you need to do is go into View and hide object browser. If you can't see it, it'll say show objects browser. Make sure you open that up. While we've got this helmet fix selected, you can tell it's fairly bright. We're going to come back into here. We're going to go edit again. And we're going to generate face groups. Now what this does is that it will color all the face groups and make different face groups according to sort of an angle threshold. So if the angle is more than 10 degrees, it's going to split that into a separate face. Some of this will get kind of muddied up, but that's okay, we can work with it. If you do not see colors, hold down the space key and you'll notice right here is that they have color and no color. So there's no color. This is probably what you're seeing if you can't see anything. Make sure you click that button there and it will show you all the colors that you need. We're going to accept this default because it does separate out most of the stuff that we need. And we're going to hit accept. Now we need to take this helmet. And one thing that we can sort of count on is that it's symmetrical. So we need to split it in half. So we're going to come in here. We're going to go to plane cut. We're going to go up here to right. and rotate this guy around till 90 degrees. This plane will automatically center on the model. So this will be dead center of it. And if it's symmetric, this should work out really well. We're going to discard half of this model so we don't have to worry about any of it. So we're going to accept that as is. And now we've got half the model that we need. We only need surfaces, the top surfaces of things. There's a few things that we can do. We're going to come into select, and you'll notice that we have a giant ball here. Sometimes that ball's a little too big, so again, we're going to press and hold the space key, and we can shrink that ball to a little smaller for selections. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to double click on one color, and you'll notice that it's selected that whole selection there. This is part of creating the face groups and coloring them, because if I double click the helmet without these face groups, it would have selected the entire helmet, and that wouldn't be any good to us. But we need to start extracting the pieces that we need. So we're going to come in here, we're going to go to edit, and we want to separate. So now we have this guy here, and we can rename him, select, double click it. So we're going to say this is the top. So we know what's going on, and we're going to hit enter so we have the top. Then we're going to select on this guy again. We are going to click the select button again. We're going to double click this, and we're going to take a look and see if that catches everything that we wanted. And it does. It selects that whole sort of edge. So again, we're going to come in here, and we are going to go and separate that out. So now we have the side. Rename that so it's easy. And we're going to keep doing that for all the panels that we need. We're not going to do this back panel here. We're just going to leave a gap. That's something that we can sort of improvise. But we're going to grab all the panels that we need. Okay, so now I've got the sections that I want. And what I can do is I can hide this. And it's going to hide all the pieces that I don't want to have to deal with. And you'll notice in here, we've got some problems. We've got some blue lines where we don't want blue lines. So let's click on that one face there. We're going to go to analysis. We're going to go to inspector. And it's going to tell us, hey, there's some problems here. Usually we can hit auto repair all, and you'll notice that it cleaned everything up. That doesn't always work, but this is usually a really good way to get things done. One thing is I can sort of see like a little seam in here that I don't like. We're not going to worry about that yet. If it becomes a problem in the future, we're going to deal with it. But right now, we're just going to leave that. Now look at this guy. Again, we're going to do the analysis, inspector, auto repair all. Sometimes it's not going to be able to repair everything. And this actually is probably going to become a bit of an issue a little later. These red guys are usually a pain. So things you can try is like minimal fill. See if that fixes it. It didn't. Smooth fill didn't work, but we're not going to worry about that. There's other methods that we can deal with, or we can work with for that. Now, we're going to take this guy, analysis, inspector. You can see auto repair all. Now that didn't repair things the way we wanted to, right? So we're going to Control Z our way out of that. We're going to inspector. We're going to try a different fill, minimum fill. See if that works. It didn't. Control Z. Inspector. Smooth fill. Auto repair all. And it's not working. So again, we're going to have to work with some of this stuff here and try to do what we can to repair it, to work with it. But there's also another thing that I've noticed here is that I want this cheek panel to be separate from this edge. So we're going to come back into select. And we're going to select as close as we can to the edge of this guy here without getting the rest of that cheek piece. And we're going to get a little bit of that curved edge, but that's fine. So now I've got that circle done. Whoops. Okay, so you can see I double clicked and that's not what I wanted. So we're going to hit escape. We're going to do the selection again. I was hoping I could select a whole bunch of stuff. Now, sometimes if we can play with this, you'll find that using a big selection tool can be, changing the size of the selection tool can be handy and not handy at the same time. It all depends on how everything's working. In this case, it helps and it's not selecting too much of that extra edge there that I didn't want to get, but one thing we can do is we can always scroll in and press and hold the middle mouse button and it'll get us zoomed in. So now we have that. I'm going to shrink down the selector and we're going to try to remove some of the selections. Now if you press and hold Control, you'll notice that it allows you to deselect some stuff. We're going to try to get in there as clean as we can. Get some of this stuff here. The cleaner the edge is for making these flat patterns, the better. So here I don't want that edge. I'm going to press and hold Control and come down till it disappears. And we're going to try to collect that one little edge there and there. So now we have this whole selection done. We're going to do the Y, and that's separated that out into a separate part of the cheek. So we got cheek. We're going to call that 02. So we've got the regular cheek area and we've got the little cheek. We're going to do one more quick analysis, inspector, auto repair all. Now, this is where the magic happens. We're going to take this guy here. And oh, one thing you always do, Mesh Mixer, it has a really bad habit of crashing on you. It's not the most stable software in the world, but works pretty good. So gotta make sure that we always do a save, right? Once you make any major steps, make sure you save. So we're gonna call this man01. And we're gonna select on that guy. We're gonna go to edit and unwrap. One thing is this is kind of interesting. It's giving me two flat patterns. So now why that is, I am not sure, but we're gonna just kind of go with that. So sometimes you'll notice that if you go by components and you make it rigid, it's not working out. So you can change two components or you can change two groups. That's probably what's happening, is it assumes that there's two groups in there. Oh, I can see two groups in there. That's okay. So we're going to select out of that. We're going to come in here and we can see that there's this sort of weird curvy stuff in here. So I'm going to try something. Yeah, you can see that that whole selection there, I don't really want that in the model. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit X, and that's going to delete all that extra stuff out of there. Now I'm going to leave a lot of these sort of little extra bits in the video. I know it's going to make it a longer video, but this will come in handy. Trust me on this, follow through on this, and it will be your friend. So we're back to the back panel. Let's go to edit. We're going to do unwrap. And again, sometimes the defaults are good, sometimes they're not. So I like making sure that we're by component, that we have conformal and packaging type. Again, play with these and see if it works. Sometimes stacked works, sometimes line works. In this case, you can see that line looks pretty good. And we're just going to accept that. And this is, for me, a lot of by guess, by golly. So at any rate, we have got a flat pattern for that back panel. We're going to edit, we're going to transform, we're going to top view, and we're going to move this guy off to the side. And he is the back panel. And let's see, this edge is usually the top, so let's orient that. So actually I can see something here. Normally when you go to top, you have the letters are correct. I like making sure the orientation of everything is correct. So this is that back panel. And we'll just line that up so that it looks like sort of where it's supposed to be. We're going to hit accept. So now we've got this back panel's done. What I generally try to do is once I have the panel done is I will hide it. Make sure we name this guy. Let's carry on to the next piece. This one's going to flatten real easy, I can nearly guarantee. So we're going to come in here. We're going to unwrap. Now you'll notice it didn't show up on the top here. Now let's see what happens when we go to by components and we make it conformal and optimize, stacked line. This is making a liar of me, but that's okay, because that means that we can figure a few things out here. I could show you some of the tricks. So this here is not flattening out the way I'm hoping it would. This is where we come in and we're going to double click everything and we're going to select. Now we're going to do a remesh. Now one thing I've noticed is generally increasing the mesh density helps out quite a bit. And make sure that the boundary mode is refined boundary. And we're going to accept that. Now let's see if we can flatten this guy out. So edit, unwrap, and there you can see there is a flat pattern being generated. I'm going to just go with the defaults, and I made that. So part of making sure that you can unfold this is making sure the mesh is good. So again, we're going to go into edit, transform. We're going to move him out of here. We're going to accept. That's cheek 02. And we're going to hide cheek 02. Let's go back to the top view to make sure that we can see everything, and we'll move him into a place that is generally going to be better for us to understand what's going on. So we'll just take that, and the cheek is a little further forward of the other piece. But anyway, let's just move it off to the side. We'll accept that. Now, this piece here, you can see that there's all sorts of problems with this guy as far as the mesh goes. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and do the analysis again, inspector. We can see that there's issues. Let's see if we can auto repair with a smaller threshold. Doesn't work. Larger threshold. Okay. So sometimes you can't repair what you need to, but we're just going to cross our fingers and see if we can flatten this guy out. And he's not showing up as a flat pattern on the top. Just play with components, conformal, playing with these to see if we can get something. Again, we can't get anything, so we're going to cancel out of that. We're going to go back into select. Now remember that one trick that we had before is we go into edit, remesh. We're going to increase the density, and we're going to make sure that refine boundary, that makes a big difference, and we're going to accept it. And one thing is that one thing we can do is we can clear the selection and select, and we're going to come in, and before this cuts out, you can come in here and you can select some of this stuff here. Now one thing that we can do is those holes, we can go edit, erase, and fill. We're going to accept that, and you can notice that it fixed that problem there. So we're going to deselect, reselect. We are going to come in here and do select, double click. Let's go back to edit. We've got that one piece selected, and we went to unwrap, and you can see again that remeshing and making sure that we have the pattern. It's going to give us a little bit of an ugly flat pattern, but that's okay. We can work with this. So we're going to go to edit. We're going to transform this guy. Let's move him over close to the piece that he's going to mate up to, like that. Now, one thing is people are probably going to be asking, why is he not using Pepakura? Well, Pepakura doesn't give me nice smooth edges that I like to work with, especially for a lot of the stuff that I'm working on. I don't like the sharp angles, and I don't like to have to convert everything. So this is sort of the methodology that I use. Now, with this guy here, we are going to fill in this sort of gap once we've gotten the flat pattern. So again, we're going to come in here, we're going to go edit, unwrap. Okay, so this will be a perfect example of what happens sometimes. Sometimes Mesh Mixer pauses and then just about crashes. So I'm going to get out of this. Remember, I was telling you after you've made any major progress, save it. So we're going to save it. Now let's go back into unwrap. And you notice that it pauses. I'm going to cross my fingers that we can actually get something usable. So this is not working as far as groups. We're going to try by component, and you can see it pausing. So it's having some problems figuring stuff out on here, right? Conformal, sometimes that works. Oh, there we go. Strangely enough, that doesn't normally happen to me, especially with this piece, but we're just going to take everything that we get. So now we've got that guy, we're going to transform him. Again, we're going to get him out of the way. That's not what I wanted to move. So let's hit escape, select the piece that we want to move, edit, transform. We're going to rotate him around so that we get it in the orientation that we want. go to top view, this top view, move that piece over here. We're going to accept that. Now again, there's going to be a lot of cleanup that we're going to need to do, but we can do that again in Inkscape. So this unwrap that we didn't talk about before is, rename that properly. This one here is side flat. And to be completely honest, I'm naming things because you guys are watching me. If you weren't watching me, I wouldn't be naming things, and I have a bunch of flats here that I'm trying to figure out what belongs to what. Trust me on this. Do as I say, not as I do. Make sure you rename all these. Don't be lazy like me normally. Now, you will have noticed on a lot of Evil Ted's stuff is that he'll take a dome like this and he'll separate that into different panels. There's a few different ways you can do that, but this is my favorite method. And here is that we select on that, we go to edit. Now remember we did that one split, that plane cut. So we've got the plane again. We're going to go to the right view. We're going to rotate this plane around till it's 90 degrees off. We're going to come up here and make sure that we slice and keep both. And we're going to slice this about here. So that's going to give us that top cone piece that we can bend quite easy with the heat gun, and then sort of a dome section that we can work with. I've had some fairly good luck at making a dome of this shape before, so I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to heat form the EVA to that. Let's just tweak it a little bit, and we're going to hit accept. So now we have this guy, and we've split it, and we've kept both pieces, but it doesn't show me two pieces. So again, we're going to have to come in here, and we're going to go separate shells, and you'll notice that we have top shell 1 and top shell 2. Crashy crash crash! Are you... Ah! Remember how I was telling you that you got to make sure you save? Perfect example right here. Don't get frustrated. Deep breath. Get back at it. If it's hung, kill the process, get it back, and start up from where you last saved. So these things happen. This is one of those things that you kind of have to deal with when you're working with free software. It's not the most stable in the world. If you have SolidWorks like I do, then you can go through and make this happen. But this is the free way, and everybody likes free to make this happen. So carry on, deep breath, and let's go with things. Now remember, don't ever be afraid of coming in and fixing things again. This video is going to be so long. I apologize for that, but there's good information in it, right? We're going to split. We want to keep both slices. Okay, so the fill type. This is one thing that we were having problems with before, is it was creating some issues for us. And I realize now, the remeshed fill, we don't want that. No fill. We just want to split everything up. Now we've got a nice clean line between the two pieces, theoretically, although we have two different colors. So again, we're going to come in here. We're going to go to select. Double click on that. We're going to do Control Y. Actually, not Control Y. We're just going to do Y. That will create that one face. We're going to select here. Y again. So we create those two faces. These pieces we don't want anymore. So you'll notice in here that we have that sort of stripe. That's the back side of the surface that you wouldn't normally see. Now, cross your fingers for me. You're going to edit, unwrap. Let's go to components. Still not working. Conformal. Whew, there we go. We're going to accept that one. So now we've got a good flat as far as that goes. Edit, transform, and I don't like hiding things from anybody, so I'm going to show you all my mistakes, as frustrating as it can be. Come in there. We're going to accept that. We're going to hide the helmet fix part. Let's go in there and erase that piece, or hide that piece. Let's select on the new lid. We're going to edit, unwrap. Oh, there is something there, but we want to do it by component, and we want it conformal. Those are the two things that I want. Oh, one thing I can show you here too. This red section, shows you exactly where you're going to need to be putting your heat gun to make sure that you get that dome shape that you want. So you can see the inside here, we need to really hit that with the heat gun and start doming it out with whatever anvil shape that you have. We're going to hit accept, transform. We don't want to transform that piece, so we're going to cancel out of that. We're going to hide him, select on that guy, edit, transform, move this piece up here. And that actually sits right in here. We're going to accept that, and then this piece we're going to move back out. So edit, transform, let's move him out and away. We're going to accept that. Let's go to the top view. Now what we have here is a basic outline of all the flat pattern pieces that we need. So what we can do is we can select everything. You can hold down shift and select on all the pieces. We'll go to file, export SVG. So this is going to give you a vector just of the outlines that you can use in Inkscape, and we can start generating our flat patterns based off of that. So you can do by group colors, face colors, you can do group color. You can say no color, that will just give you outlines, which is fine. We're going to export that, and we're going to call that man01, and we're going to go save. Now, this is basically where I'm going to cut this one short, because we're going to get into Inkscape. It's going to take just as long to figure a lot of that stuff out, but just so you know is that we're going to open up Inkscape. We're going to open up that file, and we're going to go with things. Now, one thing that I haven't covered here is how to scale the helmet. One thing that you want to do is, before you start doing a lot of the flat patterning, is to scale the helmet to the point that you want it. Then create the flat patterns. That way the flat patterns are going to be the size that you need. In this case it's a little different, but we just need to build the skills first. Then I'll show you the scaling. So we want to open this guy up. We want to go to there. And let's make that, well, where'd it go? Press and hold control and scroll out, and you will notice that right here, all these pieces will fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet. That obviously is not the scale that we want, but we can grab the scale that we want and need here in the future. But this is the foundation before we clean up all these edges of your flat pattern that you're going to be able to print out and use. Okay, I know this has been a really long one, but this is super powerful. And when you think about this, you're talking about half an hour to create a bunch of flat patterns for a Mandalorian helmet. Bill, Ted, I'd like to see you do that in the same amount of time. Ted and Bill and Britt and Sean, and everybody uses the methodology of using a head and creating stuff. Honestly, it's great. It has taught me a huge amount. This is nothing more than a different version. I'm not knocking you guys down. In fact, I admire your work so much, it's crazy. This is something that can be super powerful if used right. It takes a lot of practice. It's going to be frustrating as all heck, but give it a go, because you don't have to build a model to be able to do this. You can grab files from Thingiverse or do a Google search for STL, and you'll be able to find a lot of the stuff that you need. Create flat patterns based off of that 3D model. Make sure that you look at where the licensing is, whether it's Creative Commons, whether you can share alike. If you want something that you can sell and you can use, then you need to create the 3D model. And we'll cover that here in some future episodes. But anyways, in the next episode, we'll be covering Inkscape. I would like for any comments that you have on this below. Hit a like if it's been any help to you, and I will talk to you guys in a day or two. Take care.